Kids are all many vote by mail, how many early voting, how many election day. We then take all that information and that we turn that into tables with our for early, each early voting site, each election day location. And so not only, for countywide, but for every location and every location by the hour, so that we can properly plan, know what to expect on election day. So for this election, I mentioned that, the commissioners had gavelled down 64 early voting sites. Cedar Hill, ISD, I think, wanted to add a location, so there'll be 65. And then there's a decrease in election day vote centers from the 455. These are ones that are not available for this election that we were not able to replace. So 65 and 455 is what we'll be conducting this election with. Allocated workers. We always, the number of workers always varies based off of what the needs are, projected turnout, how many, because we do all those projections, how many, what's the throughput of poll book, what's the throughput of every position in that place. So for the November last year, we needed 3,100 people. This election will need about 2,100. Of course, it's a low turnout election. Low turnout elections, the interest in low turnout elections is the same interest there is in voting in elections. So it's difficult to get people to work. As you can see, in May of 22, a low turnout election, we had 300. We were short 320 people, and thus weren't able to open all of our polling places. November 22, we had a surplus of 325 people, and in May of 23, we had a surplus of almost 800 people. So the parties and our office have done a really good job of recruiting, making sure that we've got a lot of folks ready to go. Now, we'll see how this election goes. The numbers so far we're not panicked. We're still a ways out, but the question.
Yeah, Michael, back up to the decrease in I think it was the slide before this where you have the decrease in election day vote centers. You got 455.
Yes.
What is that? What was the number before that's representing the decrease?
463.
464. 463.
463. Okay.
So 8 won't open because there's construction and various things like that, and that happens every election.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know what that number was.
So the next thing on the agenda is talking about the tactical plan. You guys, of course, we've been down this road before, but I'll make sure to remind everyone. So when we're doing our planning, we have the county has really been doing a lot with county objectives, and they call them OKRs. And so the county has these, very broad objectives, and then based off of those, then we build our elections office OKRs, and every department in the county does the same thing. And that's kind of measuring these are our big stretch goals to try to make the county a better place. In addition to that, and I think we've had 12 OKRs the last year and this year, but in our office, we're doing even way beyond OKRs. We're doing, this large tactical plan where we're, rebuilding a lot of things. And so on the following slides, I'll kind of touch on the highlights of our tactical plan. I won't go through bore you with everything, but the highlights of that, and it'll show that, what's been completed, what's in progress, and what's pending. So tactical planning is, and those things in that tactical plan are kind of half of our job. That's rebuilding the organization. The other half of our job is running it. And so in order to do that, we use eDate. It's our election deadline assignment and task engine. It's an online tool where we manage more of these 700 tasks. So we're building and we're doing. Using those two different tactical plan and eDate, those are our two main tools that we use. And so this is just kind of a highlight of the tactical plan, kind of by our divisions. How many, communications, they got 6 not started, 4 in progress, 18 complete for a total of 28. So you can see in the completed area, we've been pretty busy over the last couple of years. So this is something new I wanted to just show you real quick. This is our new intranet page. We're really becoming much more digital all the time. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and then reshare. I'll make this more interactive. So this is our intranet page that only our staff can see. Not the public, but it's the place where we put all of our tools that we use on a daily basis. And so number one is our org chart. Our org chart, we base everything we do on our org chart, all of our positions, our functions, and we use that as our filing system, how we organize our tasks. It's the number one thing that we use to organize our life. Our DC election documents, this is our filing system where we're trying to corral all of our files. This is a link to our tactical plan. And just so this is kind of what it looks like. It's, by division, department, what the problem, what the solution, what our task date, when we're trying to get the work done. Comma request, comma is our content modification, management, approval process. Basically, it's what we've done recently is before any document ever leaves the door, if it's shown to the public, it has to go through an approval process. Because, people look at a document, if there's a bunch of misspellings, I always say, if they see that, they say, well, if you can't spell, it's unlikely that you know how to count. And so so we really want to make sure that our documents are, well vetted before they leave. This is just a link to the Texas Election Code. This is a link to the Secretary of State's laws and procedures, their interpretations of the code. This is our management OneNote. Every meeting, I think I've mentioned this before, every meeting that for all of our departments, we keep collective notes. It makes us a much more efficient organization. And so we don't have 6 people scribbling down on their own paper. We have one collective note. Every conference room, we have a big screen like this and we project those notes and keep one collective note. So you can, and if you miss a meeting, you can always go back and find out what took place during that meeting and what the to-dos were. This is our Power BI reports. And what this is it's a link to all of a whole series of reports so that we can properly manage our data. Our data prior, and frankly, data in most elections offices are a mess because it's people doing spreadsheets and databases and this and that, and you're pulling data from all sorts of sources. And so our Power BI reports do that in a very managed way. And so people don't need to know how to do sophisticated queries. They just go to pre-made reports by our IT staff. So we're trying to do a much better job of managing our data. Over on the right-hand side, this is, election specific information. So this is our countdown clock. We're 25 days out from this election. Here's the e-date task list that goes with that election. This tells, we've taken all the information out of people's heads and put it into this document. And it describes, it's sorted by division, department, person, date, function, and describes what has to happen. And of course, if something's yellow or red, that means we're a little bit behind on those. And so someone hasn't been updating their e-dates in the ops area. So this is a really valuable tool that we've built internally. Election day information sheet. This is just the summary information of all the key dates related to the election. Our election day contact list, all of the people working and our vast army of people that we have put together for an election. And here's the job schedule for the people that are working on that day. And then these are our allocations. So this is just kind of giving people one spot to find all this information. Then by division, we show all of our special things that people need to get to. So there's an overtime request form so this is under our HR records team. We've digitized we've taken all this paper that we used to pass around and we've digitized everything. A sick leave request. So I click on this and they fill out this very simple sick leave request. Apparently, there it is. So they submit that, it's routed to their manager and so we get, and then it goes onto a calendar and we know who's here and who's not here, et cetera. This makes us more efficient. And so we're continuing to build this area. Each division and department are adding more and more of those shared links that are critical to their areas. So I just wanted to show you that because that's like one of the big tools that we're using. I'm going to go ahead and reshare the PowerPoint now. I mentioned, the use of analytics. And so now I want to kind of talk about our technical plan. These are highlights from the technical plan and from certain ones that I wanted to just mention. So the executive team, the use of analytics, we have an elections analyst that works with Melissa and myself. In 2023, we continue to revise our projection models. We met with SMU statisticians and we said, what can we do to improve this? And so for the most part, they said, looks pretty good. We don't really have any recommendations on how to change. So 2024, we're going to really kind of experiment. So we're going to look at, can artificial intelligence help us with some of those projections? So, and we've been experimenting with artificial intelligence all across the board, not only here, but in some of our communications and our writings and things like that. So, and you'll notice here it says 2024 OKR. So this is part of the technical plan, but it also sums up to an OKR too. So we're working with SMU on that and we're pretty excited about to see whether or not artificial intelligence can make us more intelligent. Personnel, this is something, until I wrote this slide, I didn't even realize how successful we were on this. So remember a year and a half ago, we had shortages everywhere. Shortage in our staff, shortage poll workers, shortage temp workers, et cetera. And so we've really worked hard to make that better because people are fleeing elections everywhere, all across the country. And we want this place to be a great place to work where people want to come to work. And part of that is to increase their quality of life and reduce their hours. And of course, if you're short 10 positions, everyone's working to make up for that. Well, we have 51 positions, and as of now, we have 0 vacancies. And and I'm going to guess we're probably, I could confidently say this, we're probably the only department in the county that can say that. I know that there's some departments that have 30% vacancies. And so we're very, very proud of that. We do have 2 pending reclassifications that are going to be heard they've already been approved by Commissioner's Court, but they're going to be heard in civil service next Monday. And so we'll have 2 positions going to be posted in about a week or so. So those will become vacancies. Our IT partner positions on our org chart, we have IT people embedded here. And there's 5 of those positions. And we have 1 vacancy there now, and that was the departure of Stan Suffolk. And Stan's one of the people that I brought with me from California. But there's been a little bit of turnover in IT for the county right now. I think 3 of their 6 top positions are vacant. So, and then they're doing a Gartner study. They're trying to improve the IT department. But in the meantime, Stan had a fantastic opportunity to stay in California. And so, he left us and took that job with our blessing. So, and I'm very happy for him because it's a great opportunity for him. So in the meantime, the IT department is doing a great job trying to step in his shoes and filling that with multiple people that are trying to make sure that we don't have any IT issues. Human resources, this is an area we kind of, if you look at our technical plan, we focus on a certain area. We spend a lot of time in central comp. We spend a lot of time in vote by mail. We spend a lot of time in voting sites and kind of moved in training, based off the triage where we needed to fix first. Well, most of our operational stuff is in pretty good shape. And so now we're focusing on kind of this, HR and budget for 2023. And so our HR is not great. And so, as far as our processes, and of course, you're seeing some of that stuff with the electronic suits, the time off requests and all that sort of thing. And so we're making a lot of fixes to our HR. And Robert Hurd, who used to be the assistant here, is now our HR director, and he's doing a great job. We're continuing to, and so you'll see these are OKR 2023 OKRs too. We had our new security plan actually in 2022, and then throughout 2023, we enhanced it. This summer, we did a desktop exercise with all the county officials, sheriffs, all the bigwigs, Judge Jenkins, everyone, and then stepping through a plan, what would happen in a major emergency. And those desktop exercises are great because you really find out where your vulnerabilities are. Our 2024 tactical plan, we're going to try to fully implement the rest of that human resources plan. We're reviewing all of our policies, developing policies where we don't have them. And then finally in that area, huge growth area for us is and I've mentioned this before, is the Public Information Act requests, audits, litigation. Me and a couple of my staff spent a couple of days down in San Antonio in our trial for SB1 this last year. But so litigation, audits, election record requests are just killing us. And this is happening all across the country. You'll see when they do a request for us, if you ask the other 3,000 counties across the country, they're getting the same request. And so I happen to think it's somewhat of a organized effort that maybe not well intended in some cases. But because it really just detracts from our jobs and the time that we're putting into our jobs. So what we're trying to do is to digitize all of our records and put them in a place where we can access them easily without having to dig through mountains of paper.
I think my comment to that is that some of those cases are very much necessary because they will be able to recognize some deficiencies, not just in the organization, but in the law itself.
Oh, yeah.
And so while it may be very taxing on the staff to provide that information, it's critical for that data to be accurate in order for us to make improvements across the state. And so thank you for your work, because that is going to be, again, critical in the decision in that court, in that case. So
I totally agree with you on the litigation. I didn't want to mix litigation with the public information request. It's kind of interesting with the.
Well, you said San Antonio.
Yeah.
So PIA would be San Antonio. That would be the litigation.
Yeah, litigation was San Antonio. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was interesting because technically I was a defendant in the SB1. I was technically defending SB1, but I kind of think I might have been one of the star witnesses for the plaintiffs because, I think SB1's got a lot of problems. So next slide. Payroll adjustments. This is one we're super happy about. So all through 2022, we were changing the back end of the payroll process. We were going from a system where people were literally taking calculators, plugging stuff into a calculators by hand and handwriting stuff down to figure out payroll. And so we were doing that back end process as much as we could. As much as we were allowed to do. And that helped us. So by 2022 general election, a year ago, we paid people fairly quickly and fairly efficiently and accurately. Though, you know, some people still try to make that out that there was still a problem. And frankly, I think that was just politics, because after that, then we finally got permission to do what we had been planning to do all along. And that was to transfer over to use digital time clocks, to use our e-poll books as time clocks. In addition to that, we knew that the county was moving to the Oracle database, and I'm sure you guys all heard about this conversion, all the problems the county's been experiencing with the Oracle conversion and people not being paid, et cetera. And we didn't want our poll workers to get caught up in that. So we got permission to pull out of that. And so we ended up for the May election paying people not in 23 days, but in 10 days. And then for the June election, we paid them in 6 days. And now that was such a success, the county as a whole is moving to the same system that we were using, to move to ADP. So we kind of forged the way there, and we're glad we did. In 2024, well, actually, well, it's 24 tactical plan, but for this election, we're expanding from our election date, just for May and June, we did our election day poll workers. Now we're expanding to our early voting workers also. So that's the next step for the county. And then after that, it's everybody else in the county. Our budget for 2024, we're going to try to do much better with our budget tracking systems, processes, and procedures. That's one of our OKRs. Our budgeting process is not great. Look here, I couldn't drill down to the finest details of the budget, but that's our goal for this next year. And then one of the reasons we hadn't done too much of that is, number one, it wasn't mission critical, but number two, with the Oracle Fusion coming online, we wanted to see if Oracle Fusion was going to provide us with some of these tools to tie into it. As it turns out, it's not super helpful, and so we're going to kind of build some stuff on it. Communications plan, 2023, we've developed an outreach plan. You know, have done a lot with that. We've been working we've built the template for a new website design. Jalen and Nick have been working on that. We think that that's going to be released sometime in early in 2024, time for the primary. And of course, we're monitoring legislation this last session. It wasn't as bad as 2021, but there still were a lot of changes that we had to make that affect us more than affect the public. We're expanding in 2024. We're looking to expand our alternate language coordinator positions. What they do, be more aggressive and better tracking of you know, how many Spanish language workers, how many Vietnamese workers, and doing much more outreach with them. And then we're trying to get our data together. I mean, there's lists of electeds throughout the county. The state's contemplating doing this too, but they thought about doing it, but it kind of got shot down because it's such a monumental task of, believe it or not, of just knowing who all the elected officials are in the state, let alone, you know, in the county, let alone the state. And so we're getting ahead of that for when the state does do it, and kind of building this more sophisticated list, putting it into a tool where where it's much more accessible instead of in everyone's Outlook or contact list. For the registration team, this last year, we've done a lot with using technology for our file maintenance, keep our list much more clean in a more efficient manner. And we're in the middle of developing an electronic system to manage our VDRs, our voluntary deputy registrars. I mean, right now, we have we train 3,000 people to be deputy registrars, but we don't necessarily, we just kind of hope to show up somewhere. And so what we're doing is building tools, online tools where they can go and they can see what what event there is, they can sign up for it. If someone's not signed up for it, we can see who we can map who the VDRs are nearby. And so then we proactively reach out to them and say, hey, there's something this weekend nearby, blah, blah, blah. And so that we're in the middle of that build right now, but we effectively used it to a certain extent for this last National Voter Registration Day. 2024, we want to continue to revise our file maintenance in really incorporating the use of NCOA's National Change of Address, because if we can get people moved prior to an election in our voter registration system, they won't have, it's easier for them on election day to vote. And then just doing a better job of, revising all of our correspondence, the ones that we can, the state doesn't control anyway. That's part of, we try to get everything down to a 5th grade level. And so, kind of experimenting with ChatGPT, helping us doing some of that, because it's not as easy as you'd think. You can, in Microsoft Word, you can actually go in and put a letter or something in there and say, grade this, and it'll tell you what the grade level is. This is a 11.5, and then you change these words, and you think you're making it simpler, and now it's 12.2, and things like that. So ChatGPT and we're trying to use that to simplify some of our correspondence.
Michael?
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. With respect to of course, we're talking about OKRs for 24. What does that look like in terms of transition to someone new? Is it implemented within the system itself? Is it something that would have to be kind of incorporated in this new person?
I think that the organization has, the OKRs are locked into the budget. The budget runs from October to October. So the organization's kind of obligated, here's our goals. Now, you could get a new person in here saying, those aren't my priority, I'm gonna spend more time, that's fine. Or they might say, we're fully endorsing all these, or, they've got additional ones. I mean, keep in mind the OKRs are kind of the highest level stuff, and it's kind of a subset of the tactical plan, which is much bigger, frankly. So they could probably keep those OKRs and add more tactical plan and have more of a focus on some of those tactical plan objectives. The big one is that the second one on the 2024 is implementing a new voter registration outreach plan. And so I'm going to hold that one. I'm going to talk about that at the end, because I want to get into a little more detail there. So next is mail ballot team. We're moving more and more toward, we're getting to be big enough where we should be doing our own ballots. So we hired a vendor to print our ballots. And we did a pilot program for mail ballot tracking. And I think I probably mentioned this here before. Ballot tracking. So this is something that I developed back in 2009 with a company called Ballot Tracks, or they call themselves Ballot Tracks now. Where a person can, who's a mail ballot voter, they can sign up for text messages, phone calls, robocalls, or emails saying your ballot's been printed today, your ballot's being sent to your home today, your ballot's being delivered today, that kind of thing. And then they can track it back where it's at on the way back too. And so we really weren't, the time wasn't right. We weren't big enough to implement that prior, because our numbers are small. In California, I was doing 500,000 mail ballots. Here, we're doing 50,000. And so, but we did a pilot with this company, and we're going to pull the trigger on that in 2024, I believe. We did, for our mail ballot team and our voting sites team, we took our supervisors and we swapped them. We kind of like to get people cross-trained and find the best fit. And our voting sites manager was someone who came from Travis County, and he was the mail ballot supervisor down there. So we thought we'd go ahead and swap him over to mail ballot, and then we took our mail ballot supervisor, moved him to this team. And for that mail ballot too, we may go to a vendor to do everything, to stuff our, to print our ballots, insert them, and mail them. Voting sites team, 2023, big success. I mean, this was a huge project where we had the iPads, we went out to every location, we surveyed those locations, took pictures, et cetera, to almost 600 locations. So we're using those surveys now to help us better manage these polling places. We're in the middle of phase 2 of our software development. We have software that we manage our polling places that we don't like very much. And so we're developing our own internally. But that one of the things about that, one of the big things that was a huge success was that we implemented SharePoint shared list with the political parties. The problem previously was parties kept track of their stuff on a spreadsheet they'd send us. The minute they hit send, it became obsolete because then a phone call comes in and something changes. And so we have these shared lists where we have an online tool where the parties are looking at the same data as us. And all three, both political parties and us were operating as a team now. That part went really well. The other part of the build, though, of getting rid of that existing software and building our own, now with all the turnover in IT, that's been put on hold. So we're kind of stuck with our existing software. It's not the worst in the world. It's not the best, but at some point in the future, I hope to replace that. I talked about 2024, the new manager, and then continued refinement of the political party collaboration, which actually has gone really well. Training team, we expanded the scope. Our training team had been focusing on poll workers, but now they're training much more. They're a true training team. They're training a lot more of our internal teams. It's expanding phone banks, et cetera. And with the help of the communications team, they're doing a lot more videos and those little video vignettes where we can kind of put those as little reminders of how to open a poll or something like that, or how to set up a machine. That team is in charge of our managing our help and analyzing those help desk tickets. Every time we get a phone call in, no matter what, we try to log it. And because we don't know that data coming in, what our problems are, we can't fix the problem, right? And so that analysis has really helped us to tweak our training and try to get those grades up. Because sometimes those grades, if a judge is grading low, might be a bad judge, might be us, bad training, or bad forms, or whatever it may be. So the analysis of these help desk tickets as they come in prior to election day and on election day is really important. So we can tweak our training. 2024, continued refinement of our training material in development of technician resources. We're letting the training team, our field techs that are out there, we're doing some things in that area to make their jobs a little easier and have some better resources. And then the development of more infographics and designs for our people being trained. Our logistics team. So we're finally getting completely out of Langdon Street warehouse. This was a warehouse that was just frankly a mess. I think we've had approaching 20, 30-yard dumpsters full of junk, paper, stuff from the 50s, 60s, 70s. And so we're getting rid of all that. We're just about out of there now. Surplused all of our old equipment, supplies. 2024, we're going to finalize our 1460 warehouse next door. We're 99.5% done. We're going to finally close that out soon. And the big thing for them is to digitize their inventory process. We built an inventory process to better manage our supplies. It's a paper-based one though. Now that we've got that done, now we're gonna digitize it. Central count, this, I've talked about this in the past. We rebuilt central count, 2021, 22. We're told that our central count by the Secretary of State, our central count is the best central count in the state. It's very friendly for poll watchers. It's like a clean room. It's a beautiful thing to watch actually on election day. And the rebuild the process is having to do with processing those ballots in that room. To give the voters confidence, especially these poll watchers that are in there watching our every move. We're now doing a daily login. We got a very comprehensive central county station plan. It used to be kind of an outline. We're adding more and more detail to that all the time. That's all another thing about being transparent. When a poll watcher says, why are you doing this? Here's the plan. We're just following the plan. And in addition to that, we have daily log that goes with it. Here's what happened every single day. There's nothing to hide here. And then the central count team is now they've moved to programming our own ballots. And now we're going to expand in 2024. We're going to record our own alternate language audio in-house. And so we're taking more and more of the work that the vendor used to do, and we're doing it ourselves. And so we have a great central count manager, but we've really piled it on Danielle Grant. She's our manager, and so we've got a new position. That's one of the 2 new positions that we're hiring for that area. Election hardware team. This is the team that manages our, $30 million worth of equipment on the field. We've done a lot with trying to improve the services of programming. We got all, detailed checklists to make sure that we prevent problems before they go out. But we're also working now to improve when we do have a problem in the field, because it's equipment. Equipment inevitably fails. And so we had a rather crude way of dispatching. When we get help desk tickets, we move them through a system, and right in this room, up on the screens, we have like a big control room. And we were having sheriffs manually deploy sheriffs driving technicians. So we're developing a software that's a little bit more, I would say, when you see Lyft or Uber, you can track where the cars are, and a Uber driver claims a ticket. Oh, there's so that's what we're building towards, is self-deployed technicians out in the field. And then our job is to simply watch the little cars go around and make sure that they're doing their jobs. And so we're in the infancy on that right now, but I think phase 1 of that is going to be for November. Hopefully phase 2 will be ready for March election. And that's the 2024 technical plan that OKR. GIS team, of course, they're a big part of that, building that tool as well as many other tools. But in addition to that, they've been really, really busy. And I say round 3 of the city boundaries. When we did the election boundaries in 2021, election precinct boundaries, that was in itself was hard. Then we had a wave of cities come in, then another wave of cities come in, and then another wave of cities come in. So every time a wave of cities come in, they don't have a deadline. They can do them whenever they want. So when they do it, it's a huge project for us. So GIS teams manage that really well. And of course, they're a big part of for 2024, they're a big part of this self-service deployment application. Software and tech support. 2023, we finished our COOP plan, our disaster recovery and business continuity plan. We finished the assessment from DHS. The feds come in and they do a vulnerability assessment. And the IT's been, working with them to make sure that we're solid. The continued development of collaborative tools, those are some things I showed you with, E-Day, technical plan, et cetera. Internal tracking system we built internally. And then for 2024, we're going to continue to build on the Microsoft 365 suite. So in my previous locations, we did a lot of our own programming. Doing our own programming is that it's harder to maintain. And so we're doing everything based off the Microsoft 365 suite. So, because there's lots of Microsoft experts out there. So all those tools that we're building, these SharePoint tools and these lists are much easier to manage and to build upon. And, those are these, like I talked about the, a time off request, you fill it out, it's routed to this person, and routed to that person, that sort of thing. And then reorganization of our department network. I can't tell you how many times I've spent 20 minutes looking for a file and how frustrating that is and how time consuming it is and what a waste of time. So we're rebuilding that network to be more efficient. Next is just kind of touch on the communications and voter registration plan, and in particular the voter registration plan. Very interested. I talked a little bit about the VDR program of marrying people up to locations and using technology to help us with that. But in addition, we've got social media plan. And Nick, I want you to just touch on some of this about the social media and voter registration, and I'll take a break.
Yeah, so we want to try to be more digital, and I think I removed the right up there. But we're trying to. Digital is cheaper and we can target and we know who's registered. So I think the first thing we're going to do going into this March, as we prepare for going into the March election, is we're going to kind of take a list of people that we have registered previously, and we're going to divide that list up, upload that list, and kind of use our digital targeting when it comes to like registration. So upload a list of all the registered. We know who's registered. We can geofence around Dallas County. And then use our spend a bit wiser by targeting the people that aren't on our registration rolls. Because right now, what we've done and working with ABI is that, we just take out digital ads and it's all over Dallas County. It's mostly just a geofence. But we can, remove 1 point, and that's all click based, and we pay on clicks and the click through rates. And what we can do to save a lot of money is we know who's registered. We have their information. Let's target those who aren't registered. So our digital buys can be reduced and go further. And then the inverse, those who are registered after the registration deadline will kind of filter, okay, we'll run our ads, election ads, only to those who are actually registered, rather than to the 2+ million people that live in the county. We'll only target those who we know can actually vote. That's going to take a little bit of prep. So over the next couple of months, we'll be prepping that, making sure that it's ready for our Google ads and all that stuff. But we got to use our records a little bit better because we have the data, right? A lot of when we pay for them to like, who should we target? Who do we know we target? But we know we need to target those who live in Dallas County and aren't already registered. So we're gonna try to do a little bit smarter, a little bit better at that. We've been in meetings with DART to try to kind of figure out what we can do for those kind of hard to reach people, how we can do more physical ads, stuff like that with them. And so we're trying to get a jump on this March election. We know there's going to be a lot of people out there talking about the election, campaigning for it, but we just kind of want to close that gap to the hard to reach people, those people who may be on the cusp of registering. That's why, I think you'll be hearing a lot from Esmeralda about trying to reach out with y'all to the high schools and those new voters, those hard to reach voters, those who we kind of want to spend our dollars on. And let the campaign goes for those people that we know are going to turn out.
A question, you may already be doing this because I know that you have been talking with, I think maybe Diane when she was president of the league.
Yeah.
So not only just getting people registered and understanding people registered, are we also doing something to communicate what's on the ballot? Vote for one in a nonpartisan way.
Yeah.
So not just register, but encouraging them to actually vote, you know what I mean, with information.
Yeah, we've discussed, because in California, they do a pretty, like the League of Women Voters candidate guides. The California, the actual county that people actually doing it, will put out their own guide and kind of promote that and push that out of what's going to be on the ballot. Like, I mean, the 14 amendments that are out there now, we're trying to press out, what are these about? We don't have to take a side, but you need to be informed
Yeah,
on what's out
and
there.
we have those. In fact, I was just talking to them that we just completed our guides of just explaining what's on it in a way that's easy,
Yeah, and with the league, once the league does their prints, we start taking those with us when we go to events. So the league will deliver some of those candidate guides to us.
Yes.
And then we'll take those with us just to help be another avenue to hand those out to people.
And then as part of social media, is it possible to also say vote for, use vote411.org or something?
Yeah. And I
Is
think.
that already in place? Were you already planning that? I saw
Yeah,
Jay, I
that's
see
some-
Jay. Yeah,
So
okay.
that all is going to also transfer over to the website rebuild as well, because we're gonna flesh that out a little bit more.
Okay.
To where there's more educational material and content on there, as well as building up our social medias. Like YouTube, utilizing YouTube more to create
That's awesome.
short
'Cause that's
videos,
gonna-
long
there's
term,
certain, yeah.
long
love
form
that.
videos. And that transfers over to all the different platforms like Twitter, Instagram. We slice and dice those to then transfer over to those different platforms. So it's going to be way more comprehensive.
And I think we'll have enough bandwidth to do a lot of the creation and the ad buys ourselves. Because we do lose a little bit of money if we hire a firm to go do it for us. But, our team's fully hired up. We have our staff and we're, quickly becoming veterans. So we think we'll be able to save some money.
Dr. Lowe's?
Yes, you mentioned targeting registered voters and social media ads. How are you targeting them in social media?
So
I mean, what information are you using? How are you targeting specifically? Do you have access directly to their social media accounts?
no, so what we do is you can build these lists. We'll take Facebook. So Facebook, Instagram threads, they'll let you upload a list of certain markers. We keep it secure. There's ways of doing it. But what ends up happening is Facebook goes, okay, if you have a first name, last name, address, or first name, last name, phone number. Facebook has all your information because you put it in, first name, last name. They know generally where you live and all that stuff. And it will take the list we upload.
Okay.
And try to match it the best they can.
Right.
It won't tell us to what percentage they matched it. They won't tell, we upload 1,000 people. They won't tell us, oh, we found 800 or 900. They'll just tell us, they'll give us some kind of level of, it was really good. We have a high match rate, yada, yada, yada. And so they'll use a bunch of different markers and we'll make sure we have plenty up there, but that it still stays secure and safe. And we don't give, obviously we're not going to give certain information up, but just enough to make sure they can match well.
Mhm.
Once they match well, we can target those. So past the 30-day deadline, we'll say only target registered voters, upload that list. And so we don't waste money on those who aren't registered and can vote.
Right.
Before that though, we'll run ads of registering to vote, only target those who you don't find on our registration rolls.
Mhm.
But that live within the Dallas County, live within Dallas County, stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, Facebook will match you. Google Ads will do the same thing. You have a Google account, they have your address and your phone number. If we upload that to them, they'll go, okay, we matched the best we can and we're targeting those people. Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
I have a similar question, but about the high school students and the outreach. Could you describe a little bit how you identify the high school students to contact? And by chance, are you working with the school districts and possibly asking them to send some of the social media on your behalf, or
So
how is that done?
I think we'd be reaching out to Eric's group. I mean, March does such a great job in our high schools already. And I think we want to make ourselves and, Ribby and Esmeralda are we actually had a meeting today about it, how we're going to try to be a better resource, work closer with y'all. Because as we've been diving in the last few months, who are these hard to reach people? We're kind of coming to tabling's great. Tabling's great. Going to a government building's fantastic. But we know that how many kids are turning 18. We know where they're at. We know where they go to school. Let's just go to the schools. Let's help y'all. Let's just see if we can get closer with the school districts because we know where they're at. And we know they're the ones that are one of the hardest to reach.
And it's the law.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things is sending out a nice reminder email to our principals at the beginning of the year and before the voter registration deadlines going, hey, look at section, I already forgot it, but that was part of our voter registration outreach plan is to go look at section blah, 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 blah. You may not know this, but as a principal, you're responsible for these. If we can help you with those responsibilities, if you would like resources from us, we're happy to print or give you white cards. Just let us know if you ever run out, stuff like that.
I think there's a couple of challenges there because with turnover rates at high school principals, sometimes the principal that was there in place in May is not there in August or July. And so whatever communication that you're going to send out, I would suggest it go out in August 1,
Yeah.
because they're required to have that person in place by then. And then hit them hard. I mean, they're overwhelmed already in August with they're inundated with a lot of tasks to do. And so if you make it seem like, let me help you, we can come in and take care of this for you because, we don't want you to have this responsibility.
Yeah.
We'll take the responsibility for you. If you take that approach, then I think a lot of them, and that's how March to the Polls have been so successful.
Yeah.
But you've got to hit them hard in August and hit them until that deadline. I think that deadline's in September. And if they don't have it done, then, they can be in violation of the law if anyone ever says anything. But that rarely happens. But I think if you start communicating in the spring, 50 to 60% of the time that principal may not be at that school in August.
Just a shout out to Dallas ISD, which is one of the partners of March to the Polls, and they send that communication and they endorse it and stamp it and are fully behind it.
And get it
And yes, turnover is an issue at all levels.
everywhere.
But they send it out consistently and it's like planned they're big champions in voting, which is great. And other districts are too, but you're exactly right. Like those are the conversations that are happening and they get a letter.
Is it DeSoto High School that does one, like a big one every year?
They do a big
Yeah,
event.
we
did, National Voter Registration Day. We did 7 high schools. We did Ferris High School, Naaman Forest, Pinkston, which we never have been in Pinkston before. We were just glad to get to Pinkston. Pinkston, Duncanville, Cedar Hill, DeSoto, and Pierce. So we hit all those schools that day. We registered. They're still calculating the numbers, but countywide, we hit about 30, 35 high schools on National Voter Registration Day. But March to the Polls has a comprehensive plan that's working.
But
In addition to that, I would mention that another thing we're gonna try to do with our technology is to make sure that we have voter registrations in public places and track, and we're building new displays, better looking displays. And instead of it being a once a year, hey, we got this project for National Voter Registration Day, it's a program that we maintain year round, that there's always voter registrations in every one of these. I don't know how many hundreds of locations will end up happening, but we're inventorying those locations. Who will take, where can we put them, and how do we keep
Like
them
a
filled?
kiosk.
It's like just well, we're experimenting with it now, what that holder would look like. And how do we keep them supplied? And one of our targets is to, everything's about measurables. And so we've got to design a better way to identify every voter registration card so that when it comes in the door, we know exactly where it came from. So we can find out where we're effective and where we're not so effective.
so we're gonna play around with it. I mean, we'll be talking with March to the Polls, obviously all the experts and our student orgs, but we want to make ourselves more available somehow to them, right? We're gonna be going to, I think in next month, we'll be going to a high school to help them. They're gonna borrow some of our equipment to hold their high school campus election. And we like, okay, well, we'll give you some of our stuff, but we also would like to register to vote. We know the election's passed, but March is coming, right? So we just kind of want to find ways to get in where we can assist the high schools, but also register some kids at the same time. But
So this has been, I talked about how we moved from department to department. And, so voter registration going into a presidential year, if you ever look at the voter registration numbers, it's flat. And there's a little bump for November, for a gubernatorial year, but for a presidential year, there's a huge spike. So the time is now to really be kicking in this voter registration plan on the things we've talked about. In addition to that, you know, you mentioned the principals have a legal obligation. Well, so do NVRA agencies. Every agency that deals with the public is supposed to be offering a voter registration card.
Say that again, every what agency?
Like any funded governmental body that deals with the public, when they have a, so if it's WIC, for instance, and you've got a client and you're working with that client, you're supposed to offer them a voter registration card.
Gotcha.
Some of them are great about it and others are not. And so when we did this in Southern California, we developed a program with the ACLU where we brought in all these department heads, many of which didn't realize they had that obligation. And we said, we're gonna help you comply with the law. And then the ACLU was kind of there saying, yeah, you will do it, otherwise we're, you know, we were the carrot and they were the stick.
Sure.
And so we're looking at something like that, but that's a little bit down the road. We're trying to pick the low hanging fruit right now. And so we're doing some of this digital stuff, the, you know, the high schools, everywhere else, everything else we've mentioned so far. And so that one's probably the lower priority that we're going to be doing down the road. But the other big one is direct mail. So we want to hit people in as many ways as possible, digital, paper, et cetera. And so we're working with a vendor and we're getting ready to bring before Commissioners Court a proposal to do direct mailing program to new residents of the county on a monthly basis, then to unregistered households. You know, so it'll be dear resident, you see that there's no one registered at this household, here's a registration form, blah, blah, blah. And so that's going to be coming and we're hoping to start that one soon also.
What about, I know we discussed in other states about the online voter registration. How do we motivate? How do we get this going in Texas? I mean, is that something we start with our state reps?
In my
It starts at the state.
opinion, and I guess I can say this since I'm, I think you got to embarrass. You got to say, this is Texas.
We're better than this.
Texas deserves better than this.
We deserve better.
You know, I mean, we talk about all the companies moving here, it's cool, it's sophisticated.
All the billionaires.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so all of this sophistication in this state, and there's not online registration. It's horrible.
I
It's
agree.
horrible. And so that's what I think.
Okay,
You
thank
know?
I'm glad you said that, and I thought about some other organizations, like, when you said ACLC, I thought about LULAC, NACP, all these other organizations that make it as part of their mission and goals to register persons to vote, no matter the age, you know, of course, the legal age, but students and adults. So we need to make sure that your team targets those organizations. And as well as an organization that I chair locally, it's a national organization called Blacks in Government, and that's part of our mission, is to make sure we register people to vote all the time.
Excellent. I should mention, since you mentioned that. So when I came here, we had 2 people on our communication team. And so what we've expanded to now 5 or 6, 5. So we've added 3 positions. We added Nick, communications manager. We added Jayla, our outreach coordinator. And then Esmeralda's the voter registration outreach coordinator. And then we have, well, actually it's 6. Because
Mine too. Oh, yeah.
we have Vietnamese language outreach,
Yes.
Spanish language outreach, and the whatever the division's called, but it's a so it's a much larger team now, and we've got specialists. So Jayla's the one, I know she's jotting down some notes and she's gonna talk to you, and because she's working with groups, right? You know, have be better partners. so we can be a better partner. Anything else about voter registration?
And thank you, we enjoyed partnering with you all last Saturday. So they partnered with several organizations last Saturday at the government center. But again, at the government center on a Saturday,
I know.
we checked it off. We registered a few, but not fruitful.
I want to just touch base real quick lastly about the 2024 primary elections. So remind everyone there's in play, there's 3 ways to conduct a primary. There's a joint primary. And this is what we did in 2022 for the first time. And a joint primary, in my opinion, has major advantages for the political parties as well as for the public. Most importantly, for the public, a primary election to them looks exactly like every other election. They go to their polling place, wherever they want to go. It's a vote center, where they vote when they want, where they want. And they don't have to, they walk in, and when they see one check-in station, they can keep their anonymity. They don't have to say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. It's done silently. And so it's a huge advantage for the public. Everything's the same. For the political parties, there's a huge advantage because we do all the work most of the work for them. If they don't have a joint primary, they have to get their own locations. They have to hire their own poll workers. They have to do a lot of work with paying stuff and all that sort of thing. As opposed to joint where we do the work for them. We're the hired gun. And most importantly for poll workers. So the state reimburses $12 per hour for poll workers. Our poll workers are used to making $20 an hour. We don't have a joint primary, or when we have a joint primary, Commissioners Court has stepped in and said, we will pay the difference between $12 an hour and $20 an hour, or $12 an hour and $16 an hour. If we don't have a joint primary, we are not in a contract with those parties. So the Commissioners Court is not in the position to pay that difference. So if we're paying people $12 an hour, there's undoubtedly going to be shortages everywhere as far as poll workers go. So that's the second way, is the separate primary election that was used prior to 2022. And probably the other big disadvantage for that for the voter is they go to a location. This location might have just the Republicans, or this location might have just the Democrats, or this location has both and they're on both sides of the room, but they have to then reveal, which one they go to. The new twist is the Republican Party is contemplating a separate primary with hand-counted print ballots and hand-marked, hand-counted ballots. There's significant challenges if that happens. If that happens, there won't be 463 locations. There will be a significant number higher than that because of the quirk in the law that says you can no longer combine precincts during primaries and stuff. Very detailed and highly complex. We just got an opinion finally from the Secretary of State's office late last week, kind of walking through all the complexities of this. But there would be a significant increase in locations, significant increase in poll workers. And this not only affects the Republicans, but it in turn would affect the Democrats because they'd have to do it too. Not the hand count, but the locations. And so the Republican Party Executive Committee's meeting, I believe, on October 23rd. I think that the Republican Party leaders are being very fair about this. They're hearing their constituents, they're listening to them, and they want to give them what they want, what they're asking for, a certain piece, but at the same time, they're doing it in an objective manner to analyze whether it's going to work. And in my opinion, it would be very difficult for it to work. And so, hoping that when that evidence is laid out, they're going to make the best call for their party and decide not to do it.
What's the fiscal change
Well, this is one of the challenges. The state has a certain amount of money set aside for primaries. And states told us if any certain, because every county, a lot of counties are considering doing this. They won't have the money to pay for these locations. They won't have the money to pay for the workers.
Hmm.
The state could be in a real crisis, and then the parties would be left holding back. They'd have to pay for the things themselves.
Okay.
So both parties would experience increased costs.
Yes.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make you aware of that we are kind of in the analysis phase right now. I mean, we've been knowing this is coming, we've been studying it, but we were really, really waiting for the Secretary of State's opinion because there's a lot of legal interpretations here. And so now that we have that, we're studying it and we're working with both parties to educate their people about the ramifications.
So so the Republican Party makes that decision, then no one else has a vote. It's just decided, and that's what the county does.
Both parties decide how they want to conduct their election.
Right.
But
Suppose they disagree, then
if
how?
they disagree, they both run their separate elections, but even because of the way the law works, if there's separate elections, there's a certain number of polling places that have to,
For each one.
yeah, because of the quirk in the law. And this is a new law.
New law in September.
That's all I had for you guys today, unless there's any other questions about anything we've talked about thus far.
Yeah. Talk about visa. So because since we have this new law, will there no longer be a need for the visa?
No, I think there's always a need for VCAC because, we should be meeting on a regular basis, always evaluating the polling places, looking for those holes, looking for those new growth areas, looking to constantly improve. So I think that in my recommendation would be always meet on a yearly basis and kind of reevaluate. And now there may be challenges with doing a low turnout model, but even if you're just meaning to
Evaluate.
do a high turnout model, you always still want the best location.
When anybody checks off that they're interested in being a poll worker on their voter registration application, how do they get contacted?
You guys want to talk about that, Melissa?
I'm not sure. I don't have that answer.
Because phone number is optional, but they have their address and their name. So I was curious.
If we have that information, if they put that information, we have it and we do reach out to them for those that do.
That includes their phone.
Or an email address.
Yeah,
Okay, what-
we don't,
Once, didn't we?
no, we don't do mailings, and so it would be by phone number.
So if they check yes, then we should highly encourage in the optional field a phone number,
Yeah,
and then they would get reached out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and let me back up on that part. So we don't do kind of the snail mailing, and most of that's because our pool is much more of a, email-based, quicker response. We have a lot of options we get being sent to us from other organizations, large list to recruit from in that sense, right? But from the voter registration cards, if they put a phone number on it, then that is exported. And then we have a call out when we're recruiting and we basically look for areas. So we usually go to that list of the hard to recruit areas. And so our recruitment from the elections office standpoint is for after E-minus 20 days, right? We kind of fill the holes because the parties recruit prior to that. They do their appointments and then those judges bring in their clerks to work under them. So our recruitment is for any additional fills that need to happen. If somebody doesn't show up or if somebody needs assistance getting clerks. And so they won't get, most of the people that come through us aren't going to get an assignment until after 20 days before the election. Because we'll provide, like if a judge says, I need assistance getting clerks, we'll provide them clerks prior to that, but we don't have any authority of kind of making those placements until 20 days before an election. So they kind of sit in a little bit of a hiatus. We ask them to come to training, we get them prepared in a standby pool. And then when that 20-day mark hits, we look at where our vacancies are across the county in a map, basically, and look for people who live in those areas that are in our pool.
Any questions or comments? Our last topic that we have listed on here is discussion of future meeting times and topics. Since Mr. Scarpello will probably be leaving us very soon, what we'll probably do is I'll put out an email to the CF committee listing any topics that people want to cover, and then we'll be getting, I think, a better idea of who's coming in, and then we'll set up meeting times accordingly. Okay, any questions about that?
Okay. I'm seeing, is there any comments from?
Yeah, I
questions
haven't been
from
monitoring.
online? Are you guys watching that?
No questions, just comments.
Anything that we want to share?
We're excited to hear that we'll be working with DART in 2024 was most recent. And then there was just some issues about sound and this in the beginning, but major.
So our meeting is once a quarter, right?
Should be once a quarter, yes. Okay, then we'll go to general public comments. Is there anybody online or in the audience that would like to comment publicly from the public? Of course, you can let me know that online. If any questions pop up. For anybody online?
No one's raising their hands, no comments.
So based on the thing that I was listening to when the elections commission met, you would, because we're gonna do a transition, you could be here December, and if that doesn't work, you're not like, is that right? As far as the time.
You're gonna make a commit right now.
No, I'm not. I absolutely not. That's not, I'm just trying to understand the timing.
Process,
Yeah, the timing, because that's obviously 2024 is.
I mean, my timeline, I'll just tell you, tomorrow I'm loading my truck and I'm driving away.
It's Beverly.
But that's just my stuff. I'll have temporary residence. I'm good. I've committed, I've told the election commission that I would stick around to make sure that there's a smooth
Right.
transition.
So to that end, what counsel are you providing or insights you are providing as you think about what the next person, you said I will commend you. I remember when you came in, I will commend you for the infrastructure that you have put in place. I will commend you for the use of technology. I think that was huge. I think you've done a fabulous job of really getting the undergirdings right. And so you've got to keep that momentum. So what influence are you providing in the search? Because December 19th, which is the day after my birthday, but that's right around the corner. So what's happening on that front, the search front?
I can tell you that I've talked to many of my colleagues, talking about what a wonderful place Dallas County is to work as an election official, because, and I've been recruiting, if you will. And because I think that's one of the criteria is they want someone with experience. Someone who's been a number one or a number two, but the problem right now is everyone's searching.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a big shortage of election workers. And so what we've got to do is to sell Dallas. And so one of the things we brag about, this wonderful facility we have, probably one of the best facilities in the country. The tremendous support we get from the election commission, that money's, from the commissioner's court, they're always willing to spend the money. The support we get from the community, like people like yourselves and Marsh and Bowles and everyone else. So we've got to kind of sell that, because, good quality election officials kind of have their pick of where they want to go right now. So we've got to, and talking about that infrastructure is a big deal, because
It is.
I think it might have been on our last meeting, people always say, why are you talking about infrastructure so much?
That's huge.
I say, look at Southwest Airlines.
Yeah.
And I always point to them and say, well, Southwest Airlines was great until something bad happened, and their infrastructure was not strong
Right.
enough. And so when something bad happened, it just crumbled, under the weight. And so it's the same thing that can happen in a presidential year. Now, so we've built a very good infrastructure, but it's not done.
Right.
When I first came here, I said this was going to be a 4 to 5 to 6 year build, depends on the rate. And so we've been moving at a very fast pace. We're probably 70% done for where, but you're never really done. But
That's right.
as far as being a world-class organization, we are a very solid organization right now, but we're not world-class at this point. Got a little ways to go. So it's finding someone who wants to keep that momentum up to be a world-class organization.
Okay, finding no other general public comments online. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Thank
this meeting is adjourned.
you very much.
Thank
One
you.
thing I would like to do, if you guys don't mind, is maybe take a picture with Slifer, you can hang out really quickly, if you guys don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Looking over to the front.
That's right there.
Keep the same.
I think about
I'll send it to you, you can.
The tablecloth.
Table cloth.